There were more crates in the middle. I imagine those maybe being some kind of wild card goods for whoever won to entice the bidding. A pair of girls started audibly crying from the next cube over. The coordinator rolled his eyes at cube number 1 and began. You have all brought items to trade. You should know the rules by now. You all have to have brought items that are worth more than what I've brought here. He patted the box. If the combined value is more, then the bidding begins based on how bad you want each other's stuff. You all stay in your cubes for safety. I tell you what's in each cube, and then you can figure it out. I think we already figured out what cube number 7's brought. More crying from the unit to our right. Number 1, are you guys in this or not? The coordinator turned to us all around and shrugged. Apparently this was unusual. The coordinator started with unit number 2 then, and they started opening all their crates in this bizarre show and tell. Then all of a sudden the shutter in group 1 began to rise. I heard units 7, 6, and 5 all lift their rifles at the same time. Nobody left their cube. This startled unit 2, who stopped what they were doing and started yelling, and the girls crying got louder. Unit 3 and 4 couldn't tell what's going on either and started pointing their rifles and pistols at everyone. Unit 1's shutter didn't stop, though. It kept slowly and dramatically raising. Unit 2, 3, and 4 figured out what the concern was finally and lowered their weapons. The coordinator spoke up. Unit 1, you know the rules. Any shenanigans in the other groups are greenlit to wipe you out and take your stuff. Then your affiliation will be barred from attending in the future. This group ignored everything and kept raising their shutter. The light reached in and there were 6 people in varied styles of the same uniform with their backs turned. As soon as the shutter was lifted, the group dramatically turned around to reveal they were holding rifles. The tension seemed to ease for a second, until the group started fiddling around with their rifles. They partially disassembled their rifles for some reason, and then started sloppily reassembling them, not doing a very good job of it. They would have magazines falling out and try to pull the bolt back, only to have a bullet fly out due to it already being in the chamber. There was one that seemed to be trying to put a barrel on a partially complete rifle for some reason. It was very odd. Everyone started to get seemingly completely entranced by this sheer nonsense. There were 6 people with matching red neckerchiefs fiddling around with rifles, with at least 15 rifles pointed at them. I had subconsciously been trying to look for cover, but there really was none to be had. The units were also very shallow, offering essentially no cover from those across. More accusations started flying as this group, for about 30 seconds or so, kept fiddling with their rifles and dropping parts. The coordinator had completely lost control, and we silently exited around the left corner of the unit. We were noticed, but if anyone cared, it didn't register. They probably assumed we forfeited our loot, and then the thought glazed over due to so many threats around them. We quietly ducked around the lot of storage units and back to our van. We didn't want to make any noise that would draw attention. We were just about back to the van when all hell broke loose where we had just come from. All at once, a huge truck smashed through a piece of fenced wall, and bullets started flying into the storage area. A split second later, they were turning fire only to get stuck in a kill zone by an inside group. Our XO jumped in the driver's seat and turned the van on, and we all jumped in the back of the van as we drove away. The guys that got in first helping to pull in the rest of us. The gate was closed, so we couldn't go that way, and he didn't want to drive through and risk destroying the van. Through one-way spikes. Instead of ramming the gate, we turned, throwing us all into the side of the van, the doors flapping from partially open to partially closed since we didn't have time. We finally found an emergency exit that was open. It had one-way spikes that allowed people to only leave We were about to make our final break for it when I saw two little people holding hands running towards us. "Stop the van!" I yelled. Our CO slammed on the brakes and I went flying towards the front of the cab. Everyone was instantly mad at me, but I ignored them, threw my shield down, and tumbled out of the van. I ran out to get the girls, hesitating as everyone thought I was mad. Finally, they saw what the issue was and hopped out to flank me. Right then, two hill people rounded the corner, bloody and angry. A few of them must have escaped the ambush somehow and were trying to get to the van. They didn't have enough people to open fire on us without immediately dying and let us go. We got the girls in the back of the van in seconds and peeled away with the rear doors properly closed. It wasn't safe in the back of the van with all the bumping and sliding around. As soon as we were safely away from the chaos, we helped them to the front of the van. Then we got them the seat from the cargo area and got them buckled into the center and right seats. We asked where their parents were, but they weren't saying much. We got them each a bottle of water and they seemed to like that a lot. They still didn't say much though. Before too long, they were out like a light bulb. We drove on east, into the hills. The only road there was that didn't lead us back into that town and back into that nightmare. It was almost enough to where I forgot about the marauders. I put my shield up against the steel of the van's structure, leaned into it, and dozed off. Chapter 19, The Hills. Mid-afternoon, Day 2. I don't know how long I slept. I got bonked maybe around 10 or 15 times before I really woke up again. Maybe that means we've driven 20 miles or so. I'd been out for an hour or so. I realized I'd been sleeping and the guys started teasing me, said I was making weird noises. I told them whatever and asked if there'd been any status on anything, and they all said no. I knew I made weird noises when I slept. I remember my significant other mentioning at times it sounded like something scary and the noise wasn't reproducible due to it being so unnerving. There wasn't anything I could do about it, and I never remember doing it. I never remembered the dreams either. I suspect it had to do with my migraines and whatever was wrong with my head that useless neurologist could never find. The nurse practitioners and general practice doctors tried to tell me it was all psychological and depression, but whatever. I knew the difference between depression and having debilitating searing pain at completely random times, so the noises were probably attributed to that. Also, the bright blue dots I sometimes saw. They'd ask me to mark down if I saw hallucinations, and I'd tell them about the blue dots, and they would tell me those didn't count and to scratch them out. On the notes they wanted me to take. Even if I did see things, I would have never admitted it. Laws had gotten so overreaching that they could confiscate all your firearms if you showed even a hint of mental condition, regardless of what it was. It had got to where less and less people could own firearms every year. Yes, there was a small resurgence just before the collapse, due to the other side realizing their error in judgment, but by then, though, it was mostly too late to get the bulk of our freedoms back. So I had gone untreated for whatever was wrong in my head and made weird noises when I slept sometimes. I was sick and tired of doctors trying to pass everything off as a breathing disorder. I had undergone 2 complete tests and only suffered from a mild sleep apnea. Extremely frustrating how they would never listen until thousands of dollars and a year of testing were complete. Then other doctors refuted that data as well. It got really old. I'd always felt it was some kind of parasomnia, but most doctors would tone me out as soon as I brought that up. Eventually I gave up finding a cure and suffered horribly from day to day, trying to make ends meet however I could find a way. Taking tiny jobs until I would inevitably lose them due to my condition until the collapse happened. Now that all the pressures of the world were off me, I felt a lot better. I think a lot of other people echoed that sentiment, and then I remembered we had 2 little ones in the front seat. I tried to pay attention to how they were doing amidst the bumping and road noise under us. They were still sleeping, no doubt exhausted from whatever hell they'd been through. Hopefully they would be a little better with us, though I'm not sure how much. We'd have to take them back to our stronghold and try to figure out where their parents were, I guess. I had a feeling, though, that their parents were gone. No parent would readily give up their kids unless they were evil. Those parents didn't need their kids back anyway if they'd trade them for a fleeting false sense of security. We'd figure it out.